Erev Tov B'Tayv. Let's continue talking about the laws of Shabbat. So it says the Shulchan Aruch, right, that when it comes to the morning, Baboker, Shabbat morning, it's the same thing as we have at night. So what does that mean? Just like at night, we tell you, before the Seudah, before Shabbat comes in, make sure your house, your table, your chairs are all arranged, everything is mesudar, everything is nicely ordered, good looking house, good looking everything. Right? Same thing in the morning. It should be everything nice, looking good. Not a mess, not a balagan. We don't want that, right? Also in the morning, same thing. Kavod for Shabbat. That's the reason why. Okay, so that's one thing, right? Now here's another thing, which is that also, right, in the morning we have to make Kiddush, just like we do at night. We need another Kiddush, right? What do we call this one? We call it Kiddush Rabbah. What does the word Rabbah mean? Anybody know? Big. Right? Rabbah means it's a big Kiddush, What's so big about it? There's something big about this Kiddush? Why is it so big? Why do we call it Kiddush Rabbah?
The one we do in the daytime?
Yeah. So the answer is, that the truth is it's not big. It's Adarabah, it's small. It's a small Kiddush. So what does that mean? It doesn't have any bracha, Mekadesh Shabbat, doesn't have nothing like that. Just you make, Borei Pri Gefen, that's all there is, nothing else. So it's a small one. So why do they call it big one? This is the question, right? So the answer is, it's a euphemism, it's like, somebody, is like a short guy, and you call him, oh, he's a giant, you say, like as a joke, That's the thing. Same thing over here. We call it big, but really it's small, it's like a joke, it's like a euphemism, whatever. This is the reason why. Okay, fine. There's an interesting thing about this, story brought down in the Gemara. One time, there was this Chacham, Rav Asher, right? He went to a certain town, for Shabbat. So what happened was that, he went to shul, they finished the tefillah in the morning, and then they told the rabbi, Rav Asher, they told him, they said, Rabbi, come on, make Kiddush for us, come. So they told him, make for us Kiddush Rabbah, the big Kiddush, that's what they said. So Rav Asher is like, thinking into himself, why they call it big, I don't understand what's so big about it. He didn't know that they call it like that. You know what I mean? So he wasn't sure, what to do. You know what I mean? In those days, by the way, they didn't have a sidur. You know what I mean? Everything was Baal Peh, everything was oral. There was no sidurim. So what happened was, that he wasn't sure what to do. Kiddush Rabbah. How do I do this? Maybe I'm going to make a mistake, look like a fool. So what did he do? Listen to what he does, He's not sure what to do, So he's going to play it by ear, He's going to see according to the reaction of the crowd. Okay, so what does he do? He says, Savri Maranan, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Borei Pri HaGefen. So what did they do? They said, Amen, and they start to drink, So he saw, right, that was the end of it. He wasn't sure if that's the end, Maybe he has to do also something else there. So, he did it by experiment, he wasn't sure what to do. That's the way it is, we call it Kiddush Rabbah. It's like a joke, kind of like a euphemism. Okay, whatever, anyway, right? That's what it is. So it says Shulchan Aruch, here also, right, Kiddush Rabbah in the morning, same thing like at night. So what does that mean? Just like at night, you're not allowed to taste anything before you make Kiddush. Same thing, in the morning as well. You're not allowed to have nothing. So don't come, and have a snack before Kiddush. No, you're not allowed to have. You're not allowed to have a snack before Kiddush. Who allowed you to do something like this, right? I always see, by the way, all the time, people come to shul at night, Shabbat, Leil Shabbat. And what do? When the rabbi, when we finish the tefillah, right, we don't make Kiddush here, right? Like you said, we don't make Kiddush anymore, right? That was a long time ago. So what do? They have a semichki, and they're in the pocket. They take it out and start eating, Or they drink some water, they drink some coffee, whatever it is. I tell them, I said, hey, wait, you have to go home and make Kiddush. How are you drinking and eating like that? You're not allowed to. Wait till you go home, make Kiddush first. That's the thing. So, the person has to know that. Also the same thing in the morning, Until you finish the tefillah, right? You're not allowed to eat until you make Kiddush. That's the whole thing, right? Until you make Kiddush, you're not allowed to eat. So,
No, not everybody like you. Some people wait for kids to come from work. You never know.
Right, well, I hope they're not working on Shabbat, If they are, they got a problem.
They go home change, come back. Then
Right. Anyway, the point is like this, without that you cannot eat. But here's the thing, right? You're allowed to eat before shachrit, or not really eat, but to drink, to drink some water, drink some coffee. You're allowed to.
Breakfast.
Coffee, tea, whatever. You're allowed to have that. We all do that, right? We all have, in the morning, to wake up a little bit, so you can be alert, and not fall asleep. We all do it. So how is it that we do that? But we don't make Kiddush in the morning, before Tefillah. The answer is, that before Shachrit, before you pray Shachrit, you don't need Kiddush. The Kiddush only comes in after the Tefillah, the obligation of the Kiddush, not before. Before the Tefillah, there's no obligation to do Kiddush. That's the reason why. So what about having a piece of cake, what about that? Like they do in Chabad, right? The Chabad, that's what they do. In the morning, before Tefillah, they have a piece of cake. Are you allowed to do that according to Halakha? So the truth is, that it's not really allowed to eat before Tefillah. Not on Yom Chol and not on Shabbat. Doesn't matter what day it is. You're not allowed to. Why is that? Because it's like Gava. You're coming into Tefillah. You already ate. You're full. You're coming into Hashem. With Gava. Nice and full. So this is the reason why you're not allowed to eat before Shachrit. So then why do we allow to drink? Because the drink doesn't really fill you up. It just wakes you up so you can pray good. But the food fills you up. It satiates you. That's something else. You're not allowed to have that before you do Shachrit. So in Chabad they do it. So they you always ask them, right? Why you do this? What's the reason? So what they answer, like this. They say, the Rabbi told us we're allowed to do. Why? Because these days, people are weak. They're not so strong. So if they don't eat, they don't have energy to pray. That's what the Rabbi told them. That's what they say. I don't know. He didn't tell me, the Rabbi, but he told them. I don't know. Whatever it is, But the truth is that not everybody's like that. Not everybody is so weak like that. That you cannot pray without eating some cake. Some people can pray good without eating cake. They don't need to do that. Depends on who you are, what you are. It depends. So Shulchan Aruch says like this. That if a person is weak, let's say he's sick, right? A little bit weak. Or he's just hungry, very hungry, because he didn't eat dinner last night, whatever. So he woke up in the morning, he's very weak, So a person like this, he's allowed to eat before Shachrit. Why? Because since he's very weak, it's like he's sick, he cannot pray like that. He cannot pray. But not everybody's like this, that's the thing, That's where I don't agree with the Chabad. What they say is everybody can eat, everybody. Not why everybody. Only the person who's very weak or sick can eat. Not everybody can eat. Why? What is this? That's not true. That's not Zalamet. It's not true.
Between Shacharit and Musar, they have a Kiddush.
Oh, all right.
It's almost like a full.
Yeah. So the truth is, many Bukharian communities, they do this. I saw many of them like this. Not only Bet Gavil. Also here, Rachaminov, they do on 99th Street over here. They do a lot of people. So that's the different, little bit different. Let me explain to you what the difference is. As we said, right, before Shachrit, you're not allowed to eat, BenBet, unless you're weak or very, you're sick. That's something else. Because if you don't eat, you can't pray. Too weak to pray. Not everybody's like that. So anyway, right, this is the rule when it comes to before Shachrit. So before Shachrit, if a person is sick or he's weak, and he has to eat or he just wants to drink, to wake up, does he need Kiddush? No, because he didn't pray Shachrit yet. Too early for Kiddush, right? You don't need it. That's the thing, So now, right, we get to the next stage, right, which is what he's talking about, right, which is after Shachrit, before Musaf. Are you allowed to eat and drink over here, right, over like this? As we said, some keilot, they do this, So are they okay or are they not okay? That's the question, right? So the truth is, they're okay, and I'll tell you why. They're okay. Because once you already prayed Shachrit, it's not like you're eating, with Gava, before you pray. That's not, you already prayed Shachrit. You said Shachrit already. So the Gava is already not shaykh. It's not relevant, right? When you pray after. So then what's the problem? The problem is, that the rabbis were worried if he's going to have a seudah, before Musaf, they're going to forget to pray. He's going to forget, That's why the rabbi said, don't have a seudah before Musaf. Seudah is not allowed. What is seudah? that means like more, than kabetza, of bread, or mezonot. That you're not allowed to have. But here's the thing, right? In those communities, they do have mezonot, they don't eat bread, but they do mezonot. Whatever it is, right? The toki, right? All that stuff. They eat that too, whatever. So how they do that? So the truth is, it's okay. I'll tell you why. Because since the whole community is eating together, they're not going to forget, because they're going to remind each other, you know what I mean? It's not like one person, is going to forget. Well, everybody's going to forget, the whole keilah is going to forget to do musaf. No such a thing like that. You understand? So this is the reason why it's okay. You know what they do. So now the question is, do they have to make kiddush or not? Right? When they do this, to have a kiddush. So the truth is, that the proper thing to do is to make kiddush. But there's a machloket, There are some Rishonim who say that the obligation for kiddush only comes after musaf. So according to this, you don't need kiddush before musaf. But they make it anyway, just to be on the safe side, because there's a machloket. So what they do is, they make kiddush, and they have a little snack there, whatever it is, right? Mezonot, all that stuff. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay, they can do that. Because they're not going to forget. What, everybody's going to forget? No such a thing like that. They're going to remind each other. So it's okay. But here's the thing, right? You have to remember one thing. If you make kiddush before musaf, okay, when you have a kiddush, when you go home, you have to make kiddush again. You know that? Why? You already made it in the shul. Why do you need kiddush again?
Kiddush for a family.
Right, but even for yourself, you have to make kiddush again, even for yourself. Why is this? Because, as we said, right, some Rishonim say, some poskim say, that the kiddush before musaf is no good, because you're not liable to do kiddush, you're not obligated. So therefore, since you have to, there are some poskim who say that the kiddush you made before, you didn't fulfill your obligation, that's why you got to do it again. After musaf, you got to do another kiddush. So when you go home, to eat again, you got to do another kiddush, right? Even, yes, for the family and also for yourself also. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So that's the way it works, right? When it comes to this idea. So that's the thing, that's the way it works. So let's see if we covered everything, right? Before musaf, after musaf. Yeah, I'll tell you one more halakha and we'll stop here. Mechila, you have something?
Is there any time limitations?
For what?
Like before noon, after noon?
You have to make kiddush at any time, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
People say you cannot stay on a Shabbat hungry, so you have to do it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, what he's asking. So the answer is like this, that you're not, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to fast on Shabbat even half a day. What does that mean? Until Chatzot, until midday, right? Which is today, it's like 12:10. So you have to eat before 12:10. It's Chatzot, midday. But the thing is, if you had something before, in the morning, you drank some coffee, or you had some, as we said, right? You had some kiddush, some mezonot, you're okay. Then you can eat later, because you already had something. You're not fasting. Right. You're not doing tanit.
Some community starts late, let's say 9 o'clock.
Right, so they finish at 12, right? Let's say 12:30, right?
Yes, so
but if they had something before, they're okay, That's okay. They had some coffee, they had some mezonot, that's fine. Because they're not doing tanit anymore. Right? So that's good. Now here's the thing, right? I'll tell you one more thing. What about if a person, right, between shachrit and musaf, right? He's falling asleep. He needs to drink some coffee. So now the question is like this, right? Then the community is not making kiddush, but he needs coffee. So the question is, does he need kiddush now to drink coffee between shachrit and musaf? Like, this is the question. You hear the question? Tashomea? You hear the question? The question is, between shachrit and musaf, right, and Shabbat, person needs to drink coffee. Does he need kiddush? This is the question. Does he need kiddush or not? So the truth is, that in Bet Gavriel, I see, I go there for nets in Shabbat in the morning. You know what I see? They bring their grape juice, so whoever wants to make kiddush can make. They supply you with the grape juice. But the truth is, you don't really need it so much. And I'll tell you why. It's good to do it, it's good. But if a person really needs to drink coffee, he's falling asleep, or something like that, he doesn't need kiddush over there. What's the reason why? Because we call this a suffix sekah, right? Double doubt. There's a double doubt over here. That's what Maran over there was from. He said it. What's a double doubt? One doubt is maybe, right, before Musaf, there's no obligation for Kiddush. There's also another doubt that some Rishonim say also that in the morning, you don't really need Kiddush to drink. You don't need. So there's two doubts, it's fixed double doubt. So therefore Maran, he said that whoever has a need, to drink coffee between Shachrit and Musaf, he doesn't really need Kiddush, He can, if you want to be Machmir, you could. But as we said, right, if you make Kiddush before Musaf, when you go home, you have to do it again. Why? Because some Rishonim say, you didn't fulfill your obligation with this Kiddush. Because the obligation only comes after Musaf. You got me? Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ואמן. רבי חנן בן הקדוש אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לעשות את ישראל, לפיכך הכי בא להם תורה ומצוות שנאמר בני חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.